Have you ever heard something about Joseph Smith and polygamy that made you stop and think, wait, what? That can't be right? Well, you're not alone. It's one of the most misunderstood parts of church history. Many church members, past and present, have struggled with this topic. Let's go back to where it all started. In 1831, Joseph Smith was translating the Old Testament, probably at a simple wooden table, candlelight flickering. As he worked, he came across stories of great Bible heroes such as Abraham and Jacob, prophets with more than one wife. And since Joseph was always asking God questions, he came to God with a new one. Why? Why did God allow his prophets to have multiple wives? And the answer Joseph gets is simply, because I commanded it. From that moment, Joseph knows plural marriage isn't something ancient and outdated. It's something God sometimes commands for his own reasons. But Joseph hopes he'll never have to live it himself. Well, years pass and the church grows. People are gathering, temples are being built. And then sometime in the mid-1830s, Joseph receives a private message from God. He will eventually be required to live this same law. But he doesn't want to. He's married to the love of his life, Emma, and he's already seen how much opposition the saints face. The idea of plural marriage will cause chaos in his marriage and for the church. And so he delays. But God doesn't let it go. Joseph later told his close friends that between 1834 and 1842, an angel came to him 3 times, each time with the same command: move forward with plural marriage. During this same time period, something big happened in the Kirtland Temple in 1836. Joseph and Oliver Cowdery were kneeling in prayer when suddenly the Savior appeared to them. Then 3 ancient prophets, Moses, Elias, and Elijah, each came one by one restoring priesthood keys. Elijah gave Joseph the sealing power, the ability to bind families together forever. That authority changed everything. It meant marriage wasn't just till death do us part. It could last through eternity. And that plural marriage, if Joseph dared to restore it, would become part of that eternal family system. After these keys were restored, the angel visited Joseph for the 3rd time in 1842. The angel stood with a drawn sword and told Joseph that if he didn't obey, he'd be destroyed. Joseph knew this wasn't optional anymore. It was an Abraham-level test. He loved Emma. He didn't want to hurt her, but he also couldn't ignore a direct command from God. And so, likely trembling on the inside, he began to obey. Between 1835 and 1843, Joseph entered about 35 plural marriages. 10 of those women were teenagers, something that sounds very young to us today. But in the 1830s and 1840s, marriage at 16 or 17 was common, especially on the American frontier. In each case, Joseph spoke with the women's parents first and received their permission. Many of the marriages Joseph entered into weren't what you'd expect based on plural marriage reality TV shows today. In fact, Joseph entered into 3 types of plural marriages. First was time only. Those were valid during life, possibly including a physical relationship. Second was time and eternity, valid in this life and the next. And the third was eternity only, valid only for eternity and not involving any physical relationship. Joseph's eternity-only marriages make up about 13 of his plural sealings. These were symbolic connections, linking faithful families together through priesthood covenants. Again, that's not romantic, it was just spiritual. Which brings up another point. Joseph Smith's critics have claimed that he invented the revelation on plural marriage just to be with more women. But when you look at the evidence, that theory doesn't fit. First, DNA testing has yet to prove that any of Joseph's plural marriages produced children. Given his known fertility and that of his plural wives in their other later marriages, that's significant. Second, none of the women, even those who left the church later, ever accused Joseph of using plural marriage for selfish reasons. In other words, Joseph wasn't doing this because he thought it was fun. He was obeying a command that he didn't want. Speaking of obeying difficult commandments, it's important to remember Emma. She was the prophet's wife. She stood by him through mobs and loss and poverty and constant danger. And then Joseph told her about plural marriage. At first, she was devastated. She couldn't believe God would ask this. She resisted, she cried, she prayed. There was even a time when she tried to accept it. She gave consent for a few plural marriages. But the emotional strain was overwhelming, and she simply couldn't abide the thought of Joseph being married to other women. Who can blame her? Joseph loved Emma deeply, and so some of his plural marriages remained private because he was trying to protect her feelings. It seems like Joseph was trying to both obey God and keep Emma happy, an impossible balance to strike on this matter. So if plural marriage would be so difficult and painful for Joseph and others to live, why did God ask it of them? The fact is, we don't know for sure. What we do know are there are three possible reasons. First, to raise up righteous posterity, to grow the covenant family. Second, as part of the restoration of all things. And third, as an Abraham-like test of faith. So plural marriage wasn't about romance. It was about faith, obedience, and trust, things that have always tested disciples. When Joseph was killed in 1844, Brigham Young and the other apostles faced a decision. They knew Joseph had restored plural marriage under God's direction. They also knew it would be misunderstood and hated. But they believed the command still stood, and so they carried it forward. Plural marriage continued for several decades among faithful Latter-day Saints. Then, in 1890, President Wilford Woodruff received a revelation that it was time to stop. The Lord revealed that continuing the practice would put the church itself in danger. So President Woodruff issued the manifesto, officially ending the practice of plural marriage in the church. From that point on, monogamy, one man and one woman, became the Lord's standing law again. So here's the question a lot of people still ask. Will I have to live a plural marriage to reach the celestial kingdom? The answer is no. Elder Quentin L. Cook said this: in the senior councils of the church, there's a feeling that polygamy, as it was practiced, served its purpose, and we should honor those saints, but that purpose has been accomplished. Elder Marcus B. Nash added, the blessings of exaltation are independent of whether that marriage is plural or monogamous. In other words, eternal marriage, not plural marriage, is what matters. So what does the story of polygamy actually teach us? That God sometimes asks his people to do really hard things that don't make sense at the time. Joseph didn't want to live plural marriage, neither did Emma, neither did most of the saints. But they did it because they believed God had spoken. It was their Abrahamic test. We're not asked to live plural marriage today, but every disciple of Christ is asked to face tests that stretch faith. Maybe it's standing alone for what's right at school. Maybe it's forgiving someone when it feels impossible. Maybe it's trusting God when the answers don't come right away. Those moments are our modern-day tests of faith. And the story of Joseph and Emma reminds us that faith isn't about comfort. It's about trust. Hey friend, I have been doing months and actually years of research to create for you an unofficial guide to tricky church history topics such as polygamy or seer stones or race and the priesthood. If you want to grab those, you can click the link in the description or I'll include a link right here.